completing Ironman triathlons to being an actual redheaded stepchild. Who knew that could be the secret sauce? Today on Stories Behind the Door podcast, we have principal and co-founder of Add Cowboys Development, Andrew Dunn. VAC Development doesn't immediately roll off the tongue, but Add Cowboys, that might be the coolest name in commercial real estate. I've been so excited to have today's guest on the show. He is a co-founder of that company, somebody I got to sit front row center in Atlanta at Small Bay Summit back in March and watch him absolutely crush on a panel. I'm going to get to Andrew Dunn in a hot second. First, I want to give a shout out to my friends at Kiwi 2 Steel, Wayne Woolsey and his team. Simply the best crews in storage and small bay flex steel work. Reach out to them at kiwisteel.com. The earlier you get them involved in a ground up construction process, the more their 30 years of experience can help save you time and money on your deal. That's enough about Kiwi 2 for now. I want to get to Andrew Dunn. So excited to dig in, a little bit of excitement in terms of your background and how you got where you're at. I always start this podcast out the same way, whether it's storage or in this case, small bay flex, such niche assets within CRE. Take me on the journey of how Andrew Dunn got to be involved in small bay flex.
Yeah, so I could start from the beginning, but I did my undergrad up in Washington. Basically got linked up with a guy down here in Las Vegas. I was dating his daughter, and he's
Good
like,
way to
"Hey,
get linked up.
yeah, right." And he's basically like, "Okay, how about you go live in one of my apartment complexes for a year? I'll pay your rent, and I'll pay you $800 a week." And this was in 2018, and I'm like, "All right, let's do it." I like how you live, and the dad and I worked out, but the daughter and I didn't. I was fixing and flipping homes for him. I always wanted to do commercial real estate. I saw the deals he was working on, these office buildings, apartment complexes, shopping centers, etc. Flipping dirt, and I was like, "Okay, I really want to do that." And then, lo and behold, I'm working out at the gym one day, and my partner, Devin Sansone, now was working out there. And I was like, "What do you do?" He's like, "Oh, I'm in, leasing, and I do commercial real estate, and I've done development." I was like, "I've never done development, but like, okay, let's do it." So again, just a lot of heavy value add stuff, middle market, Las Vegas, Reno, Phoenix. We started, VAC Development in 2022, and we actually bought and did our first industrial deal in June of 2022, where we bought like 70% occupied back office call center in Phoenix, and we converted it into a 2-tenant R&D and light manufacturing campus by putting in roll-ups, upgrading the power a little bit, and then kind of like, tearing out everything and going spec on an industrial footprint. Leased it to 255,000 foot tenants. We bought it for 16, all in at 24, 17 of debt, 7 of equity. I just sold it in January for $32 million. So for me,
Terrible
just was like,
return.
yeah, 100%. And then so like for me, I was like, "Hey, like we love small businesses. We have small businesses in a lot of strip centers, our shopping centers, and even our office parks. I like, in multifamily, why do people like multifamily? It's typically because of the granularity of the rent roll, right? Like like one tenant can kill you when you have like anchor deals or big box or, big like floor style office place. Like, dude, one tenant can theoretically kill your deal and really reduce your cash flow and the value of your building. Why I like the small bay business is that it's AI resistant. You got the granularity of the rental diversification. Why I say it's AI resistant, because usually it's essential service operators, like, kind of twinker kind of guys, or, some form of logistics or, fulfillment for the small business. And, overall America's run on small businesses, I think like what 65 or 70% of the GDP comes from them. So, again, I believe in small business America, the smaller entrepreneur, and although they might not have the credit, they're willing to pay the freight. They're not necessarily as sophisticated a lot of times, but you also don't have to deal with what you have to deal with credit. And dealing with credit
Yeah.
just is a total bummer a lot of the times. And they put your weight on you. You don't put your weight on them. And I'm like, I'm the one with the building here, like what's going on. So I think that's kind of how I got into it. We have 2 ground up developments right now in Phoenix. We're working on another 2 up in Reno, one down here in Vegas we're chopping around, but that's kind of really it. It's kind of how I got into it.
You gave me about 20 different questions that I want to ask coming out of that. The first one I'm going to ask is, how did you manage to keep a business relationship with somebody after the relationship with his daughter doesn't work? There's got to be some millions of dollars you can make on explaining how that one works.
Yeah.
I sort of asked that question in jest. I want to talk about fixing and flipping homes in Vegas in the late
Yeah.
teens, man. That's kind of like what was that like to be there? And as you talk about fixing and flipping in Vegas, how did Andrew Dunn have that desire to, like, listen, there's a fixing and flipping is maybe a little safer than jumping into commercial real estate development? What gave you the gumption to go take that next step?
Yeah. So the first question, I mean, listen, it's all love. Again, it's just a different choice of lifestyle, right? Like it was more of a mutual thing. She wanted to go live on Hawaii. I couldn't live on Hawaii. She wanted a different lifestyle. I was like, hey man, all good. It's just like she helped me through a lot of stuff. I helped her through a lot of stuff. So I think at the end of the day, it's all love and being good people and just knowing that you want
Love
different
that.
things out of life and that's okay. And
I
then
wish I
go
had
on.
that wisdom when I was young, Andrew. Very impressive.
Yeah, so it's all good in there, and then talking about the fixing and flipping homes, which is ironic because it's really helped me a lot in commercial real estate because, dude, I've done everything from, like, your manufactured trailer, like, real property conversion, up to, like, a $5 million semi-custom home. And so for me, like, my role was really the acquisitions and financing and the underwriting of those deals, and, like, you'd have to go all around town and kind of go through that. So it was kind of nitty and gritty. I did about 75 of them, in a few years. And I just ultimately the margins got so thin here in Vegas because it was so competitive. And I'm like, I call it the HGTV money just kind of kept coming in like post COVID is like, all right, you go do this $500,000 flip and you get outbid by, like 5% by the HGTV person because they're treating this as a hobby. And I was like, dude, I can't compete against the dumb money and I'm not willing to wait around to see that kind of fickle out. Um, Still plugged into the space. I like keeping a pulse on that market just because it helps you influence and does affect to a point like small bay. And you got to always understand that, like in real estate, everything's connected one way or another, right? So, like, how the residential market is does influence the commercial market and vice versa. So, I think for me, it kind of just played a lot of different roles to help me be a little bit nitty gritty, creative, scrappy, and development in commercial space.
The next question I'm going to ask you is, listen, when you go from and super appreciate the pivot, right? Because that did, and I went through a similar thing where fix and flip got so congested so quickly that it got hard to make a profit on things. But I want to know where you got the gumption. Where did the mentality come for Andrew Dunn to take that next step, to jump into, because you just threw some numbers out there, right? $17 million, 7 million of equity, a $24 million deal, sell for 30, 31. I don't remember the exact numbers, but that's a lot different than even if you're buying $1 million house in Vegas with a $300,000 rehab budget and turning it around selling for 1.7. You're talking very different numbers.
Yeah.
How did you have the willingness to go attack that space?
No wife, no kids, and I had a mentor with a lot of money. And so I think at the end of the day, it was no, my dad, like seriously, so, I grew up in South County, like Orange County. My parents got divorced when I was like 3. My mom goes and remarries a custom home builder in Laguna Beach. My dad lives in San Clemente. And so, like, I always saw like my stepdad as a general contractor, building these, insane custom homes that are worth more than most commercial buildings in America, right? Because they're on the beach in Southern Cal. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, like he kind of taught me a little bit, but not a lot in that regard. But like I was always kind of around it. And then my dad was this like serial entrepreneur, capital raiser kind of guy, did a little software, food and beverage, like energy drinks, then like multi-level marketing stuff, like raise money from China, like understood that whole EB5 thing. And I'd see my dad, like, I remember I'll never forget this. I was like in a meeting with my dad and he raised $5 million from this one guy for this multi-level marketing company. And he would like scheme it out with his buddy of like, hey, we're like pitching him hard. And then, he leaves, like say, like, hey, let's go take a break and go to the restroom. But he actually like leaves to go scheme it out and how to close it with his partner. Right? He's like, hey, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that. And like my dad was always a swing for the fences kind of guy, except he was just a little bit later in his life and he passed away my senior year of college just because he just swung for the fence a little bit too hard, died with no money. right? And so I think like for me, I started with 3 grand in my bank account coming out of school. Um, and I just always kind of hustled that. So I was like, hey, what's the worst that can happen? I go back to fixing flipping homes. Like, all right, I have no money. I go the corporate route. So I think like the gumcho is that I had a really good mentor and partner. His name's Benji Garfinkel. And he taught me almost everything I know. And he was just always patient. He's very philosophical. And I always saw what he was doing and how he was doing it. And like I came in when he was fixing flipping home and I just tweaked the process. Right. So like, hey, what I do when he had commercial real estate buildings and I saw him do some crazy stuff like, blow up a 9-story condo tower, flip the dirt, finish up a half broken construction project of 160 apartment units, 200,000 feet of commercial space. And I'm like, okay, he gets it. So like if I have this guy by my side, I work my ass off, I know my market, I go continually meet people, and I just really know my stuff and I defer to those who know more than me and I learn from them and you surround yourself with good people. It honestly just kind of consistent like I was dragged up more or less. Right? Like and I was never afraid to think that people thought I was stupid, right? Like I was like, all right, I'm going to ask questions. I'm gonna like throw out ideas like that office to industrial conversion. Nobody did that in Phoenix. And I was like, I'm gonna go pitch this family office. I'm gonna go pitch this bank and I'm gonna sell them on this because of the fundamentals of the industrial market. And I saw a gap in the market in the specific submarket. And we just had a really good contractor, leasing team, partners to get across the finish line and execute. So I don't know. Hopefully that answers your question, but I think it was just a culmination of events and being young and just saying, why not? Risk tolerance is high.
I have to tell you, my jealousy meter of where your mentality is at the age you are is off the charts right now. Because at 52 years old, where I'm at now, I understand a lot of the things you're talking about. That piece about asking questions, I thought was incredibly powerful. The willingness to put yourself out there, which, quite frankly, not a lot of people are. Right, a lot of people are scared to be looked at as the idiot that asked the wrong question in the back of the room. But I found this later in life, the willingness to ask questions to successful people endears you to them very quickly. So kudos on kind of understanding that young in life. I want to ask a question. We sort of talked about this off camera, but you went after heavy value add stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
the name would imply that that's something you're willing to do. But tell me that willingness to go take on, because look, when you go buy an office building and you're going to convert it to industrial,
Yeah.
there's heavier risk there too, right? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you've got a heavier value add component, but why that thesis and why go that route?
Yeah, I think again, it just goes to back. You have to look at it the macro perspective. You have to look at your local market, what's driving your local market. You have to watch where the tenants and market are, what the supply and demand fundamentals are like in the broader market and then in your sub pocket. And why do people want to be in this sub pocket? So I think, I'd even go to another development that we are actually exiting right now, where like we bought this piece of land in the southwest submarket of Las Vegas and we had Starbucks on a lease, a gas station on a lease, an auto shop on a lease, and then like another like QSR on a lease. And then, but I had to go spec on 14,000 feet of retail of like 12 to 2,400 square foot suites, and the total project was 19. And now I'm under contract to sell the last building. I've already sold the other 4. I'm selling the strip center, and they'll like we're selling it for 25 million, right? And like I'll never forget this moment where I'm like looking at the data pretty hard. I pitched it to over 50 equity groups, and I'm like, wait a second, retail hasn't been built in how long? Where are the rents? What are the rents that I need to make my development work? What are the construction costs? And then what's the supply? Oh, it's 2.3%. I was like, okay. And then like lock me down the supply. And then I go down, I go to every building. We find out the landlord of every building. We find out the tenant mix, what these tenants are paying. And then we keep seeing lease like space get backfilled. And I'm like, this is easy. This is a lock. So I thought I was going to get $40 rents. We ended up getting $50 rents. And then what was crazy about that isn't, the rents and the exit. It's the fact that nobody would give me money. So what did we do? I borrowed 15.2 million from a debt fund at 11% interest. So 80% LTC, 11% interest. And then I raised $3 million from friends and family at a 22 to 24% preferred return. So I said, all
Wow.
right, dude, I won't take any fees. I'm capping your upside. I have extreme conviction in this thesis. But you don't get any upside. Like I'm telling you, that's it. You're getting 22%, 24% for one guy. And if they would have given me a traditional like JV equity, waterfall, or LP promote, those investors would have gotten a 35 to 40% IRR. And so it's like, okay, like, and then you just keep doing it and keep doing it. And you really just got to know your neighborhood. Where's the nucleus? Where are the economic drivers? And so for me, like, we bought and doubled escrowed vacant office buildings. I've gone through land and flipped land. Like, I think for us, it's just knowing that you have the right team in place, the right mitigation strategies, and you just really have a good pulse on the market and you trade information. And I believe as a developer or a general partner, what's your like main goal as a like as that kind of role is you're an information dealer. You're a facilitator of people, ideas, and capital. And how you use that to your advantage is how you can mitigate and be successful.
You said something that resonated so much with me. I love my mentor and have so much respect for him, right? He's been building storage since the early 90s. He used to go when he was going to do a storage development, he would go to every storage facility in a trade area and rent a storage unit. And he would walk that storage facility and count every lock on every door to see what their vacancy was like in the
Yep.
trade area. And so the thing that I took from that whole thing, I mean, there's a lot that I took, but the biggest piece of it that I get about Andrew Dunn is the willingness to go get granular on the work that a lot of, especially in the technology age where everyone wants to just, hey, can I get in storage? We have Radius Plus and Tracked IQ and Store Track
Yeah.
and Yardi where we can get information very easily. You know, people want to sit behind a computer, but the reality for Andrew Dunn is you're going out and you're finding every asset that you're going to compete with or that's going to influence what you're doing in every way. Where's that work ethic come from and that willingness to go put in work that quite frankly most people aren't willing to do?
Again, I think one of the rules I got like run like a list of commandments that I live by in the business. And again, mentor told me, Andrew, one of the number one keys to success is 90% is dress up and show up. Right? So if I show up every day and I'm going to be successful and I've seen that success for when I like really show up. And I think how do I like last longer than somebody else? Like I did a full distance Ironman. I've done several half Ironmans, done some more endurance stuff. And for me, it's like, okay, if I can outlast the competition, I will eventually win. And you know, Seth Rogen has a quote where it's like, if you quit, you'll never make it. But if you never quit, you just might make it. And I think like, dude, it might be when you're 30, it might be when you're 80. But again, it's just how long are you willing to wait for that success? And so for me, I kind of live by that, but that work ethic really kind of came as being, you know, like no joke, a redheaded stepchild, right? Like for me, like I love my mom, I love my siblings, I love my stepdad. But at the end of the day, like when you kind of have that mentality, being redheaded, kind of, you know, being made fun of, right? Like as a kid, you kind of like always like, you know, kind of made fun of, you take jokes, whatever. But at the end of the day, that's kind of helped propel me to say, I'm going to beat you. I'm going to compete with you. But again, you just got to have that like eye of the tiger inside you that like you have to prove something to everybody. And also you have to prove something to yourself. And if you're not willing to say, I have to prove something to yourself and hold yourself to a higher standard, then you're just not going to have that work ethic that's going to make you successful. Like even like at our company, I just told somebody the other day, I was like, if you think this is like you're gonna be successful in a 9 to 5 environment, like you just don't even show up to work. Like I don't care. Like, and I was just joking with a buddy of
Uh,
mine who's we're bringing a brokerage team into our office to sublease some space because we see a lot of synergies there. And I was like, he was like, oh, we'll do this on our Monday call. You know, like Monday's Memorial Day, right? And he's just like, I was like, oh, it's Memorial Day. Aren't you taking the day off? He's like, you're joking, right? He's like, no, dude, we work 24/7. I was like, I get it. And right, so I think that's what it takes when you're not Blackstone, right? When you're not sitting on a treasure trove of cash or you're in a family office, you're just spitting off cash flow and you're trying to build your business. Like I'm so grateful I didn't come from that. I came from a good life, but I think that's what gave me my chip on my shoulder. And that's why I work so hard is because I want that. I've tasted it through other people. I've been on the private planes, the first class, the nice hotels, and I've been around those guys. And I'm like, dude, this is a true lifestyle. And I think that's what drives me every day is I'm chasing that lifestyle, you know, and it's just fun, right? Like this stuff just it's just a game. Like I'm a nerd. I love gaming, but like this is like real game. to me. Like, this is the real game that's gonna impact my wife, my kids, and just my overall success in my life.
So many questions that you keep inciting me. I'm blown away. I was a martial artist, right? I didn't do
Yeah.
Ironmans, but I was a professional kickboxer. And your point about the, not quitting, and that was our mantra in our organization was not quitting spirit, right? Like stick around until everyone else stops. And I can remember my first day in my class where I joined the fight team, 63 guys. I was like, there was one guy in there that I could hang with out of 63. Fast forward 10 years later, there are only 12 of us left, and all of a
Wow.
sudden, I'm like in the top 3 or 4 of those guys, right? And what is it? It's just showing up, showing up,
Yep.
showing up. So I have so much respect for that. And again, for you to be at such a young age and to be able to understand that idea, kudos to you, man, because it's really impressive. And the sky's the limit to your point about what you can accomplish. Your point about the weekend and about, like there's no weekend, right? And it talk to me a little bit about the passion you have for what you're doing and the fact that, you don't need a Saturday off in order to kind of refresh from what your job is. What's that feel like to be doing something where you can be passionate about it 24/7?
Yeah, I think, for me, like, I was a terrible student in middle school and high school. I procrastinated on my homework, and then, like, I go to college and I get to go learn about finance and business, and I have the best grades I ever did, and then also you're paying for that education, so you're like, "I better make this worth it." And I think for me, it's just fun. I like learning. I like the people. Yeah, dude, I love the chase. That chase, that high of signing a lease, that chase, that high of executing and bringing something to fruition, having the vision to, take a piece of dirt and turn it into a building, that sense of community, right? That common unity working towards a consistent goal together and bringing so many different walks of life. I just don't think people realize that one, to run buildings takes a village a lot of the time. To get a building out of the ground takes hundreds of people, right? And I just don't think a lot of people realize that, from down to the sub trades, the planners, everybody else. And you get to, like, walk and talk with such a variety of life in this world, and you get to understand just people a lot better. And I love people. I love understanding how they think. I love seeing their success. I love hyping those people up. I'm very, like, positive mental attitude kind of guy. Definitely get a little gnarly at times just because, like, hey, this is a very intense business, and, like, I grew up playing sports, right? And so, like, there's several components of why I love it every day, but it's that yearning for knowledge, being in the know, being aware of what's going on around you, being around people, hoping to change your community, impact your community by helping it grow through the buildings that you bring to life, or help fix dilapidated and deferred maintenance buildings or vacancies, helping that small entrepreneur start their business, go through the financial analysis, make that number work, or hey, I got this widget, right? Like, maybe it's a cheaper cost of capital if I do this. Hey, I got a tenant in tow. Hey, like, I have this, like, scrappy contractor, right? Hey, I know the planner here to get my project through a month or two faster. Like, no day is like the last. And I think that's what I really appreciate. And I just love reading about it. I love talking about it. And it's just no days like the last. And I think that's just what I really like about it. And it helps my ADD a lot.
You and I literally came out of the same petri dish, my friend, and I'll get
Uh,
into this. Just so you know, my parents got divorced when I was 2.5, so
yeah,
I share very many
yeah,
similarities with you having grown up in the way that I did. And it's interesting you noted that because I have a chip on my shoulder. It's why I became a professional fighter. It's why I now do what I do in real estate. And but your motivational piece of it resonates so much, right? What we do is providing space for people to go out and build a business. And
yeah.
to me, that's, I've been an entrepreneur for my whole, well, 2021. So it's been 25 years since somebody else signed the front of my paycheck. That idea of facilitating space for other people to go out and make a life for themselves, so powerful.
Yeah, and I think, just one more thing is, like, going and having somebody trust you with their hard-earned dollars, right? Because, like, we syndicate. I use family. We raise money from family offices or institutions, and them being like, "Wow, you did better than you expected. Like, you've outperformed. Like, under promise, over deliver." And, like, just that moment of saying thank you, or like, "Wow, like, getting feedback on our investor reporting, like, hey, you guys communicate so well, like you communicate like a big institution, right? And so like for me, like that compliment and knowing that people have that trust with their hard-earned dollars, like I take pride in that, right? Like again, take pride in raising money from the big institutions with the pension funds and endowments. But dude, I love that high net worth syndication where that guy's just throwing you 25 or 50, right? Like, and it's just impactful. And I appreciate that. And getting to give them
And
money back is awesome.
yeah, giving him a 25% IRR and that money is quite frankly more impactful on his life than the debt fund or the family office giving them a similar return, right? It has a
Yeah.
bigger impact on that individual level. Absolutely love that. I want to ask the next question. I've referred to you being young, and I apologize. I'm old and bald, and I don't mean to minimize you in any way,
Oh,
but
good.
again, for the age you're at, to be where you're at in this game is wildly impressive. I want to ask if you struggle with like self-doubt ever, with imposter syndrome. Do the little voices come up in your head and kind of make you second guess, and do you have to fight that? And if you do, what do you use to as a tool to overcome that?
You know, it's so funny you said that because one of my deal partners that I admire heavily, like that we're doing all this small base, shallow base stuff with is he's like, I always ask him, like, what can I do better? Like, you're 58 years old, you've been around the game, you made a lot of money, you lost it, you made it all back. Like, wait, can you teach me like more things? And I always ask for that feedback. And I think like knowing that I continually ask for feedback from people who are where I want to be in 30 years or 40 years and having those people influence my decision making that I can go to for advice, like that's the calming factor of it all. Of course I have doubt. Of course I have that, but at the end of the day, I think Jeff Bezos said something similarly like this where it's like, like why people get stressed or they have anxiousness when going into something? It's usually because they're not prepared. And I know that if I know my numbers, I study my craft, I continually try to refine my craft, I help minimize that anxiety. I'm always going to have a little anxiety, but it's that showcase right before you jump on a field as an athlete. You kind of go into something out of your comfort zone. Like you have to continue, and this is like kind of more on the endurance side of sports, is like you have to continue to pursue a path of being comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think when you consistently do that in your personal life and your physical and mental health, that's what helps me strive through that. Working out really helps a lot. Talking to your colleagues, right? Talking to people who are younger than you, the same age as you, older than you, asking how they feel, what do they think about what's going on. That's what gives like that calming perspective to continually wake up every day and push through that sense of self-doubt.
Absolutely love that answer. Couldn't ask for a better explanation of what you deal. And again, with my martial arts background, that idea of preparation, right? Going into a fight where somebody else is trying to knock you out, if you haven't prepared properly, you're bound to get in a lot of trouble. And this is a fight, right? You're in commercial real estate. Not everyone is setting out to help you win. Question I want to ask you, what do you think is the secret? Coming out of self storage, it's been a rough couple of years, and there's cycles in every real estate asset class. What do you think separates the people that survive those cycles from those that don't?
Adapt. It's adapt. Bulls eat, bears eat, hogs get slaughtered. I love that mentality. Go take a profit when you can. Know when to bail. I think some people hold on way too long, thinking that their asset's really good, because it justifies what they did. Sometimes, dude, you're wrong, and you got to know when to say that you're wrong. And GTFO, even if it means you're gonna lose money. And then I equate our business a lot to fishing in the sense of like, okay, I'm a fisherman. I fish tuna off the coast of Southern Cal. Okay, now 10 more boats are coming. There's no more tuna. So what do I got to go do? I either got to go find another fishing spot that's far away, or I got to go, instead of fishing tuna, I'm going for swordfish or I'm going for lobsters and I'm changing the fish that I go after before that's less competitive. Right. So I think for me, like, okay, what does that apply to me personally? Okay, I couldn't find a deal in Vegas for a little bit. Now I got to go to Reno. I got to get on the plane and show up there. Okay, I now know Reno very well. I got to now go to Phoenix. Okay, I now know Phoenix very well. Now I got to go to Boise. And you consistently play between these markets. And I don't just do industrial. Like I said, I do retail. I've done a lot of office, but I think office is one of the best investments today personally, but like I can't get capital around it. So why am I going to go chase office? Right? It's like the same thing with multifamily. Multifamily is a very illiquid, asset right now because the fundamentals or the bid ask spread between buyers and seller has not figured itself out yet through a variety of reasons. So it's like I think you have to say like you have to be willing to pivot and you have to not know like I'm doing analysis on a spec deal we're doing and it's like hey like the we thought it was going to be one thing on the concession front, now the brokers are telling us it's another thing. So I'm still under development. It's like, do I have to get ahead of this? Right, like so I had like an analyst intern of ours for the summer. I'm like, this is my building. This was my business plan. This is everything I have. Go tell me every single deal right now. Cross references with the tenants and market. Like, look at everything else happening around us. Like, do we need to make a pivot rather than hold to your guns? And sometimes, and what we're finding is like, no, that was just kind of a one off deal that we were presented. We want to take it to keep leasing up space. And I think it's just, you can't just be in a box thinker. You have to be willing to pivot. You have to just continue to challenge your perspective and continue to garnish knowledge and not say like, "Oh, I bet, $30 million on this one pocket." It's like, "Yeah, I did, but things change in life. Interest rates go up. There's a geopolitical event with the Strait of Hormuz, like, maybe China invades Taiwan. Like I don't know, or there's a natural disaster event that's pulling things away. There's so many different things, right? So I think as long as you continue to garnish that knowledge, challenge your perspective, and be willing to pivot and cut bait even when you don't want to have that foresight to go make a decision that could negatively or positively impact you 12 months down the road. Because this is real estate, right? Like, this isn't stock trading like, oh, there was a global event. I could just now sell. Like, dude, it takes you 90 to 180 days to sell a building. So
So
you better
yeah.
like pivot now, make the move now, or you're going to be like left holding a bag like a lot of these guys and with these high rise 50-year-old office buildings that have no life and now they're being sold for land value and there's complete economic
Crazy.
wipeout. But a lot of people saw that. And some people wanted to hang on to those values when COVID happened. Other guys were like, dude, I'm out. Get out of the deal. And we're going to take what we can get. And they had less of a loss.
Love that. We are over 30 minutes. I'd like to ask one more question
Go
if I
ahead.
can impose upon your time. Value Add Cowboys is such a cool name. Tell me
Yeah.
about the evolution of you guys naming the company Value Add Cowboys.
Yeah, so like it was a combination of two family office guys, like WG Group and Sandstone companies, right? We had a couple people coming from both companies, and it's like we were initially going to name the company like West Foundation Capital, and we're sitting there and we're like, dude, that is not who we are. Like, that doesn't impose, like, deal junkies. It might impose some trust, but it's just another generic name. Like, how are we gonna showcase that we're scrappy, we're different, we hustle, we look at everything, impose kind of the development side, and then we're also kind of ranchers. My partner Benji has done a lot of farming in his life. My brother, is like doing the little cattle business on the side up in Central Cal. And I think, we all love to fish and hunt and do all these things outdoors, right? And so I think that's kind of where imposed our love for the outdoors and kind of the agricultural roots of one of our partners, as well as just the deal junkie mentality and just be like, dude, there's enough like Red Rock Ridge investments. There's enough of like that kind of thing. And I'm just like, dude, that is not who I am.
Every version
And
of
I think that's
legacy
it.
you can possibly come up with has a fund or an investment or something named after it. That's great. And listen, the
Yeah.
marketing side of me says, don't shorten it to VAC ever. Be Value Add Cowboys in everything you do. That name is so cool. As I said, for me, got my vote for the coolest name I've been
Yeah.
exposed to in commercial
Thanks.
real estate. Andrew Dunn, no, thank you, man. What an amazing half hour. It's hard to believe we're 33, 34 minutes into this
Yeah.
already. I very, very much appreciate you being so forthwith, sharing so much from an honest place. Really, really appreciate what you've done and looking forward to following the continued journey of what you guys do with the company.
Hey man, really appreciate it. Really respect what you do and the journey you're on as well. And thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely, my pleasure. We'll do that again. You guys get a hold of Andrew at vacdevelopment.com. I want to give one more shout out before we sign off to my friends at Kiwi Construction as well. Kiwi Steel, now they've officially changed their name. Wayne Woolsey and his team, again, 30 plus years. They've got 3 decades of building steel buildings, whether it's storage or it's small bay flex. Reach out to them at kiwisteel.com. Get them involved early and take advantage of their experience. He is Andrew Dunn, principal and co-founder of Value Add Cowboys Development. I'm Thaddeus Campbell. That's it for this week's episode of Stories on the Behind the Door podcast. You'd think I'd know the name of my own podcast. We'll see everybody next week.
Hey, man.